Scott, you hit me up this week.
I
I don't
did.
know if you texted me or if we did Discord or whatever it was.
It was
We
one of our
were,
late night romantic conversations that we had.
yeah, just bedtime, chats. And
Yeah, pillow talk.
you ran this by me. You went back to the Book of Boba Fett, right? The
Uh-huh.
episode where Ahsoka and Luke are interacting. Luke's, starting to
Yeah.
build his kind of training
New
facility in the
Jedi Order, essentially
yeah,
trying to
the new
bring
Jedi
it back.
Order, and Ahsoka refers to him as Master throughout the whole when she's talking to Din Djarin, like, Grogu will be trained by Master Luke. And so I think tell me if I'm wrong, you were just kind of like, okay, when has Luke become a master, and why is Ahsoka giving him so much reverence when Ahsoka is obviously the well, I guess she's not a Jedi anymore, so we have to say that, but she is obviously way more versed in the Force than Luke,
Yeah.
and she's trained for way longer. And so why is she giving him so much reverence? So anyway, I'll let you take it away. I thought it was fascinating when I heard it. I hadn't thought about it.
Well, I mentioned last time, I think they're going for a remake of the OT. I really do think that's where it's headed, as controversial as that might be. I want to see it happen. I really do. If it's done correctly, I could be eating these words a few years from now, that's for sure. But as I said, my main point of how I arrived at this is like there's so much story going on now that the OT is starting to kind of look weak on its own as far as all these characters and what's been happening in the background. So I just got to thinking like here's Luke. He takes on after training with Obi-Wan for like what 2 days, if he even trained that, however long to get to the Death Star, right? I don't know if he had any training on Tatooine before that because he kind of seemed to know old Ben, but
Well, Obi-Wan
I
gives him
doubt
the
it.
lightsaber, and he almost like cuts his hand
he
off like
points he
right
points at
away.
his face.
It's like you're looking down the barrel of a
I
gun.
know,
Like,
I
what are you
know.
doing?
And then he
Anyway,
had
sorry.
what maybe a week training with Yoda,
Yeah,
and
not
then
not
all of a
long.
sudden, not long, and then he goes to fight Vader on Bespin. Obviously, he loses.
Hmm.
And then he goes to Return of the Jedi, and he comes in to First Jabba's palace almost like he's a new man. So that got the wheels spinning there, first of all. But then you go further down, and he fights Vader and wins, and then he actually lives to resisting the Emperor. So I'm sitting here wondering, like, okay, did something happen before there? Is that a place to throw it in? Or the most obvious question is, how did he acquire this kind of training and knowledge to take on the two most powerful Force users who have ever lived?
Right. So
And
yeah, I'll just jump in. So obviously, the theories would either be well. First of all, let me address your point about the original OT. I think you're right. As more characters are introduced along the same timeline that weren't in the original OT, there's just so many questions about where these characters were and what they were doing during
yeah,
this timeline. And that comes to Luke, right? So in between Return and Jedi, or Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, obviously Luke has some incredible progression. And so I think the
yeah,
thought maybe before was that maybe he returned to Yoda, right?
right.
And got some more training. But I think the other option, which I want to be true, is that he and Ahsoka meet up. And Ahsoka, even, in a way, because it would just fit so beautifully together, right? Ahsoka is the Padawan of Anakin, and then Luke becomes, in a sense, the Padawan of Ahsoka, right? She passes all the
Yes.
knowledge of Anakin onto his son.
Because
You know
Ahsoka's
what I
been
mean?
trained by arguably some of the best Jedi who ever lived.
And she grew up in the temple, right? She's like the very
Yep.
last remnant of, the Jedi who were brought up in the temple, all of that.
Yeah.
And so, yes, she could teach him the ways of, hey, you're going to start a Jedi Academy. This is how you do it. This is how you train a youngling. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, this is the how it's done and
I
all
guess
of that stuff.
my real question going into that was in Book of Boba Fett, we see Ahsoka as almost like the sidekick to Luke, right? Like she's almost at least, if not on equal footing, she seems to kind of be like his second in command, so to speak. And I'm just wondering, like, this girl has been through so much. She's trained under some amazing tutelage. She was the
Fought Vader,
Padawan to
defeated
Anakin.
Maul.
I know, and all of a sudden, it's like Luke's this great, wise master who really hasn't experienced that much in comparison. So
Right.
how is this panning out? Like, it's just a little confusing to me. And
Yeah.
granted, Ahsoka is a well-intentioned character. She's kind, she's passionate. So I think if from a point of respect, like this is my master's son, like she has a great respect for him already. But as
Yeah.
far as like when it comes to power, quote unquote power and
Mm-hmm.
experience and capability, I almost am like Ahsoka's should be way stronger than Luke at this point in time.
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's kind of strange, and I would love to see that dynamic play out. Really, that how cool would that be?
Yeah. Here's what I want to see. I mean, I know you're wanting the original OT to be remade, and you could have interactions with Ahsoka and Luke. But if they keep the original OT, I would like to see kind of like how they did with Rogue One, just a standalone movie set in between Empire and Return. That is a Ahsoka and Luke movie
Yep.
that just goes through their meeting, their maybe training Luke, maybe some whatever the thing they have to
Yoda,
fight
Ahsoka,
is.
and Luke on Dagobah.
Yes, yeah, that would be incredible. And so it would make sense that hey, Luke is being trained by Ahsoka and Yoda. Like, obviously, he's going to be a super powerful Jedi if
That
he
could tie
takes to the
into
training.
there is another line, like
Yeah,
Yoda could be alluding. I think they were alluding to Leia in the first one, honestly,
yeah, of course.
but it could carry that
Obviously,
meaning
be
too for
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka.
And also in Mandalorian, right? Whenever Din Djarin's like, "Hey, will you train Grogu?" She already knows there's someone else out there because she sends him to Tython, right, to do
Yeah.
the ritual.
It's clear that Luke and her have met before. Like they have a relationship to some degree.
Yes, yes. And I think, to me, I'm just gonna say this, and I'm sure people feel a lot of different ways. The Luke and Ahsoka, if there's a movie, if there's a meeting, this is the absolute number one piece of Star Wars content that I ever want to see.
I agree.
Ahsoka
I
and
really
Luke
do.
are my absolute favorite characters. Ever since Clone Wars, just Ahsoka, just the way she was trained under Anakin, her whole story arc, from Snips all the way up to, being revered. Yeah,
And being able to
and
take on Vader, like it's
100%. What a story arc. What character development. And so I want to see her character development play out with Luke the same way hers did, right? Like we
Yeah.
don't question his development. We just want to see. I would love to see this movie be made, or however they want to do it, man. I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but
And I don't disagree that Luke is the most powerful Jedi after this going forward. I know the EU did a phenomenal job working him into that over several books. And that's why I think it's still kind of in the hive mind that, yeah, Luke's the most powerful now. But the thing about Ahsoka and Luke is they both don't have any kind of problem with pride. They are both selfless. They are both disciplined, and I think that as a duo to see that play out on screen, it's like Luke is the incarnation of what Anakin should have been, in my opinion. And now Luke has everything that he needs for Ahsoka to tell him about his father, to show him what he learned, and I don't know, it would be such a moving piece of writing. I just to see that play out on screen would just be phenomenal, especially since Mark Hamill's still alive and more than willing to do this. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, would it just be seeing them together in the Book of Boba Fett episode was just emotional
Yeah.
for me.
yeah,
really was.
100%. Yeah, I'm hoping they explore this, man. It just, like I said, I know not everyone's probably watched the Clone Wars. There's a lot of casual Star Wars fans who are just like watching movies, but man, I think people are just missing out if they don't know what's going on with Ahsoka. you know, in Luke. And this would be just a great way to showcase the kind of the reset of the Jedi Order, right? Like the Jedi, you know, they failed, they were corrupt under Yoda, but then Ahsoka and Yoda can, you know, just reset everything with Luke. Because like you're saying, they're both selfless. It's almost, but they're not that afraid of a attachment in a way. So they're almost like what the Jedi should have been. Anyway, man, I'm pumped for this. I hope it happens.